This is a plant of our celery, golden self-blanching. You can see they've done really well. We do have some lovely celery there. Now, this morning we had a slight frost. It wasn't a hard one, it probably got down to about 0. And actually the only places that really were frosted was the bottom part of our garden. No mystery there, our garden is on a slight slope, and the further down it comes toward the house, the more we see the frost. But up here in the plots, not so bad. But it's a signal to be telling me that it's not going to be long before the whole garden actually sees a frost. So what I'm actually going to try and do is to transplant a couple of celery plants up into the polytunnel, just to see if they'll keep going. Now they might not, and but we won't lose them, because we'll know within a few days if they're taken and they're all right. And if they're not looking so good, then we shall just take the harvest from here. You can see that it's got a really good root system, so I'm quite hopeful if we give it a really good watering in, we can perhaps keep these plants.
I think if we remove some of the outer leaves, do you think as well, that would give it a bit more of a fighting chance maybe?
Yeah.
Because the outer ones, some of them have got a little bit over anyway, haven't they? So
we're going to need some celery today. Now, today's programme, we're going to be looking at herbs in particular, and things that we use to flavour our food, which celery is one of them. But later we're going to go and see other things that we're doing so that we can enjoy that lovely herby taste throughout the winter months. Now clearly I've had to make a hole to accommodate these plants, so we've disturbed the soil as little as we can. But I think it's worth it just to see whether we can keep these plants going where they'll be more protected. And once we've actually made the hole, we actually fill that with water before we actually drop these plants in. Celery, of course, love to be damp. They don't like to be drowning in water, but it should always be kept damp. If you think about it, in their natural habitat, they actually grow on or by riverbanks. So they have a good drink of water now, and hopefully that will help settle them in. And we'll see how it goes. Will we still be picking celery come next February? If you want to know and you're not subscribed to our channel, then please do so, and then you'll find out.
What we'll be doing with the rest of the celery that's left in the ground is to pull that up now, won't we? And I will take the hearts out of it and freeze.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, that's another way
Chop and freeze sort of thing. So we've got a go-to stash in the freezer for stews and things.
That's the first job done, Mrs. W.
Lovely.
Now, herbs are something that we actually use quite a lot. You can see we've got a nice big parsley plant here, which has overtaken this particular bed.
That was our veggie garden, or that's our little veggie garden bed, isn't it?
Yes.
That we only potted up earlier this year, and it's gone manic.
We also have tarragon, oregano, got some rosemary and down the front is some thyme.
And somewhere in there should be some sage. I have cut some of the sage earlier, but
Yeah, it is still there.
yeah.
It's still there. So what we need to do is to cut this back. This has probably been one of the best parsley plants that we've sort of grown, isn't it?
Yes, yeah.
Sometimes.
And it was just one plant as well, wasn't it? Got massive.
Now, parsley has been known to survive winter before now. We'll find out whether ours does, because we don't usually get really, really harsh frosts. So we'll see how it goes. But what we have done, which I think we showed you in the last video, was that we re-sowed some parsley, and that's now on our kitchen windowsill. So we should have access to some fresh parsley for when needed. But one of the things that you can do with most herbs is to preserve them by drying them. Now, all right, I fully accept that they won't taste anything like the fresh version of them, but when you go into the supermarket and you buy a jar of dried herbs, you have absolutely no idea how long they've been in there, how long they've been sitting on the shelf. But what we will know is that when we dry our herbs, they will have only been done this year. And if they can just see us through until we get the fresh growth of our herbs next year, it's a job worth doing. It's warming up a bit now, Mrs. W. You know, the sun is poking its head through a bit.
Yes, yeah.
Okay. So you need to get yourself a piece of string. And if you lay that out in its length, then you can take your bunch and then lay it on the top. And then just tie it relatively firmly. And then you want to make a loop so that you then have something to hang it by. Let's cut that down to length. And then you can see Mrs. W's already started with the sage. She mentioned earlier that she had done some sage. They're already drying off nicely. And I need a hook.
They're just here.
Then place your hook in its position. And leave that there to dry out.
I think we probably will move those into the greenhouse because
Yes.
it's a little bit damper in here and we need them to dry
Yes,
so
I
they're a
think
bit more crisp. So
yeah, I think we'll hang them in the ultimately in the greenhouse.
yes.
And we shall do that for each bunch that we've got. And then we shall repeat the same thing with the tarragon and the oregano. The thyme and the rosemary should be fine. We should be able to cut that fresh.
Yeah, that doesn't really die back, does it?
No. In fact, it's one of the best times for us to actually harvest our thyme because it's not in flower at this time of year,
Yeah.
is it? And with all the hearty stews and casseroles that we'll be cooking over the next few months, those herbs really do come into their own. I'm going to do exactly the same to these herbs that I've picked as we did with the parsley. Now, there is another way in which you can actually enjoy the taste of your herbs, but probably picking them and preserving them when they're at their best. We're going to take you back to early September, when Mrs. W did something with our herbs. Earlier on the year, of course, we were sent a couple of vetigar raised beds. We have one at the top there where we've been growing tomatoes and spring onions and cucumbers, all sorts. But the one down here near closest to our house, this is where we've grown our herbs. And I can actually only take anything from here if I say the magic word of herbidaceous. You can see the parsley has grown actually really quite well.
The parsley has actually overtaken the whole bed.
Has been really, hasn't it? It's absolutely bonkers, hasn't it? Eh? We do need some parsley.
That'll be
Hello, Poppy. You all right, girl? Yeah. I know. We're in the vetigar bed, aren't we?
I think that'll be enough, darling.
Do you think that'll be enough, Pops? Hey? Will that be enough? I think so. I think so. I have parsley and I have chilli, Mrs. W.
Yes.
We need to go to the storage area, don't we?
Yes, one more ingredient, please.
Now, I had one or two questions about exactly where we do store our produce that we harvest and need to store over winter. Well, this is a particular shed of ours and has a bit of ventilation, but in the main it's kept quite cool. It doesn't freeze in here, which is why these things will last. You can see we've got all our onions in here. And we have garlic or shallots, elephant garlic, and also our potatoes here. If you look in here, this is our harvest of potatoes, Mrs. W. Look at those.
Yeah, they're looking good still, aren't they? That's good.
Yeah. One of the things that you do want to be doing regularly, at least once a month, is to check your potatoes. Just rummage around and make sure there's none that are rotting. Because if they do, it will spread to the other potatoes, and that's something you don't want. You're better to get shot of the ones that are not so good, and then your other ones will keep for much, much longer. Later on in the year, when we do some filming, you'll see that there'll be things like swede in here and all the things that we can actually keep.
Squash. Definitely squash, because
yeah,
we've got a lot of squash.
Yeah, quite right, yeah, squash. All the things that we can keep in here so that they last us the next 6 or 7 months and we can enjoy that lovely food. But for today, we do need some garlic, don't we, Mrs. W?
We do, yes, please.
So let's pop that in there.
In the magic bowl. Today we are making one variety of loaded butter. If you want to notch up your garlic bread, if you want to dress up some plain cooked veg, jacket potatoes, sautéed meats, fish parcels. There's so many different uses for these loaded butters that we make and store in our freezer. So today we're just going to show you a very basic, one of our favourites, and this is parsley, chilli and garlic butter. Thanks to Mr. W, we have a very nice selection of parsley, which I'm now going to sort through. The parsley is getting a little bit old, and this is a really good way of keeping your herbs stored for the winter when your herbs are not in your garden anymore. You still get that nice flavour from whatever you're using. But this time we're using parsley, and I'm just going to pick through some of this and just take off leaves. I don't really want the stems on this because we just want the green, the soft and tender part of the plant for this particular butter. But there's so many different variations that you could do for different meats, different pasta dishes. They're fantastic on pasta dishes actually. We're aiming for about 3 large tablespoons of chopped parsley leaves for a 250 gram pack of butter. Now I'm just taking these leaves off. I'm going to give these a wash in a moment and then leave them to dry, because you do need these to be dry as you chop them and put them in to the loaded butter. So I've just given that a quick rinse, because there did seem to be a few little creatures coming out, which you do get in the garden. So I'm just leaving that in a clean tea towel just to dry off while I'm prepping the other veg, which there's not a lot of other veg to prep. There's a couple of small chilies. So I'm just going to take out the seeds. Don't want it to be too hot. As I've said in previous videos, I'm a bit of a spice wimp, I think. I like a little bit of heat, but not too much. So take out those seeds. The same with this other little one. So these are 2 quite small jalapeno chilies, but you can make this with whatever chili strength and heat you like. I'm just going to try and slice and dice these quite finely, as finely as I can, so you get a nice sprinkling of flavour through the butter. Next, we need a nice clove of garlic, or maybe 2. I think actually we may do 2. They look good, don't they? And they are lovely garlic that we grow, I have to say. I know I'm biased because we grow it, but I just like it. I always just take the bottom plate off, and I find it's quite straightforward then to take off the skin. And then it's a little bit battered and damaged because of so much use, but we did buy this at Gardeners World Live, probably in 2017 or 18, as a lovely little, easy to clean after you've used, I feel, garlic press, and you just simply put your garlic in and twist it, and it mashes it all for you. So there's the garlic mashed. Always try and chop the parsley quite fine so you don't get a large piece of leaf in your mouth. And I would say there's about 3 tablespoons. So I shall pop that in with the chilli and the garlic. We have 250 grams of, this is salted butter. You could, I'm simply using salted butter because that's all I have today. You could use unsalted butter and then you can salt it to your taste. But I'm going to just use this, so I shan't be adding any more salt to this recipe. We just simply, it's been at room temperature for a couple of hours, so it's quite soft now. Chop it into some dice. Pop that in with your veggies. And I'm just going to add 3 or 4 grinds of black pepper, 3, 4, maybe 5, again to taste really. And then you just mash all your vegetables and ingredients together looks really pretty, doesn't it? Very vibrant colour, very Christmassy colours, I think. Look at that. Beautiful. And now all we do then is, you can use cling film. I've got some greaseproof paper, baking parchment, whatever you want to call it. And I'm just going to slice that through. So just put the butter down the middle of the paper, sort of fairly evenly, so you get... Don't want to leave any on the spoon, if I can help it. And then I pick up the two ends and fold them over a little bit. And then quite tightly. A bit like a big wrapped sweet toffee or something that you get in a sweet bag. Twist it round and just shape it how you want it, quite evenly if you can. And then I'm just going to pop that into the freezer for now. So the butter has been in the freezer now for a good hour, 2 hours probably, I think. And how we keep it is literally wrapped in this paper, and then as we need a slice of it, we simply just slice it through. And I know that this evening we're going to have a barbecue, and we have a couple of steaks that we're going to cook, so I'm going to slice off a couple of discs that will just melt onto that as we take them off the barbie. We get the lovely flavours of chilli and garlic and parsley, a bit of black pepper. So I've just taken 2 slices off like that. The rest of the block, I'm just simply going to label it, put it into a plastic container, or in this case a plastic Ziploc bag, into the freezer. And it'll stay in the freezer for a good 6 months. It'll be really fine for 6 months in there. You can keep the butter in the fridge for about 4 to 5 days, no problem, without freezing. So let's just do that. So the date today is the 9th, I believe, of September 2023. And this is chilli, garlic, parsley, butter. They are so versatile, so good, so amazing at preserving your herbs at the end of the season as they're about to go over. Get them into something like this and you can enjoy that flavour all of the winter.
Isn't that great, that loaded butter? We love using it. It's a great way to add flavour into your cooking. And the colours just look so good. And of course there are many permutations of things that you can add to that butter, depending on what your taste is. You can see that I've finished doing the rest of the herbs. And I've moved everything down to the greenhouse now, where it's a little less of a damper environment than in the poly. One thing I did just want to say, I didn't say while I was up there, is that a little bit earlier in the year, toward the end of September, beginning of October, we cut back the bronze fennel. And you can see that it's got all these seeds on it, and they are lovely for cooking. You can see you only have to give it a little shake. And the seeds fall out.
There are a lot of seeds in the bottom of that paper bag.
Yeah. We'll collect those and keep them in an airtight jar, and then we'll be able to use them. We just put them in an old bag, give them a shake, and you won't have fennel growing everywhere in your greenhouse.
Don't talk it up. Last year it was lupins. And with the other herbs, as they get dry, like with the sage, I did this 3 weeks ago, so it's starting to dry out. When it gets so it's crispy, well, then just take them into the kitchen and just scrunch them a little bit, you know, in a bag or something like that, just to collect. Chop it up if you need to, but usually it just sort of like breaks up into little bits anyway once it's dried properly.
Yeah. One of the reasons that we actually do this is because you never quite know what sort of winter you're going to get. It could be a very harsh one for us. That's for the future. Because actually, we do still have sage down there in the raised bed. Just in case we get a really harsh frost and some really harsh weather and they're knocked back, then we have the substitutes ready to come on to play. So I hope this video has given you a few ideas of what you can do with your herbs and how you can enjoy and prolong the taste of those wonderful flavourings for your cooking. Let us know down in the comments if you do this. Do you go about it a little differently? And do you do this with different kinds of herbs? These are just our stock in trade herbs that we use all year round. Do let us know what you like to use. And do have a great rest of your gardening week, and we shall see you next time.
Bye!